Okay. Hello, everybody. Tamara and
Hi.
Ruth here for your weekly energy update. Today is November 30th, 2017. Hi,
Mhm.
Ruth.
Good morning, Tamara. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. And hi, everybody in YouTube land, all of our friends that tune in either, well, usually after the fact with this show. So, what an interesting week. This has been a very interesting week. I don't know if people have noticed um, that things are kind of wonky and all over the place. But it's been. What do you think, Ruth? It's been interesting, hasn't it?
To say the least. Personally, personally, I've been working to get the the techno gremlins to give me
Yeah,
take a coffee break. I've asked them to go
yeah.
and drink some tea,
Mhm,
whatever, because
mhm.
I've had my share of trying to get things working, and it seems like that our dear Mercury is coming in rapidly.
Yes, yes. So what you're speaking about is that we are right on the threshold of Mercury retrograde. So things have been slowing down, but we also have Neptune direct. And I have something I'm going to work on about Neptune direct as
Mm.
well, because I feel like it's like, for me, Neptune direct is kind of like you can't see, you're in the dark, you turn on the lights, but you don't have your glasses on. And so you're like, I don't know if I can still see, I can kind of make the shapes out, but it's not any clearer now that the lights are on. So I think we're having, my word for the weekly energy, Ruth, is wake up call. And
I think I agree with you. There are wake up calls every which way.
everywhere we are
Yeah.
having wake up
Hmm.
calls in the news. We're having an unprecedented time. We've never seen this time in history when um, I'll just say it. We have a lot of men in very powerful positions who are actually having an economic consequence to the idea of using that power inappropriately over other people. So that is one of the things that's in our collective right now. And so, when things happen that are sort of almost unbelievable, they're just hard to believe. There's so many things happening right now, um, where people are kind of trying to rub the sleep out of their eyes and feeling like, wow, this is really happening. And some of those things we may have positive feelings about, and some of those things we may not have positive feelings about.
Hmm. Hmm. As you mentioned, Neptune going direct, because Neptune is, as we know, is a transpersonal planet which governs the collective consciousness or unconsciousness, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I truly, the way my take on this is that everything has already always been. We are now just getting to see a picture where it's out picturing
Oops.
from
Sorry.
the from the cosmos itself. All of the and I'm going to use the word the craziness
Yeah.
is an outpicturing of that collective energy that
Yeah.
has always been. And so we're getting a picture of it now on a
Right.
very a personal level.
Very much, very much. And part of it is there are people who are sort of rubbing their eyes with disbelief that it's so. I'll just use, just for the purposes of our talk today, some of the sexual misconduct allegations. We don't have to stay on this, but um, there are some people on social media, whether men or women, are saying this is ridiculous. I've never heard of people losing their jobs over, the idea that somebody pinched somebody's butt. But then there are people going, oh my goodness, I never thought the day would come. So there are, and it's kind of like when Barack Obama was elected, there were people who just thought it was like, I can't believe this day has come. This is the worst day. And then there are other people who are like, I can't believe this day has come. This is the most amazing thing. It's so wonderful. And so with everything that's happening, things are so extreme, where people are having even more polarized reactions. And it's this thing of, I can't believe this is happening, that I think is part of what's happening in the collective.
Well, astrologically, that's one reason we study as astrologers. Anybody who observes that it's literally timing. Everything has timing. Mm-hmm. And what we really are getting, whether we believe it or not, everything has a time. You know, you've heard the saying, everything has a time and a season. But whether you believe it or don't believe it, energy is going to come back. Everything is energy, which includes, and it's not really, because you were mentioning this, the allegations. It's really not about sexuality as such. It's about the human condition of one human being considering him or herself more than another human being. And we're seeing that's our underpinnings right there. That is our foundation. And so we finally are beginning to see, and this has gone on from the time that human beings have recognized themselves, have come into consciousness of themselves. So that up and down thing of, I'm better than you. Mm-hmm. I mean, whether we go back to written and recorded times, or we hear it from storytellers. Even if you look at the fairy tales, what are the fairy tales all about? The big giant who's looking down at the little tiny people. Mm-hmm. So we have it everywhere. So I think this is a time for our expansion. This is a collective consciousness expansion time. That's what I'm calling it.
Well, it is. I mean, first of all, and at some point you and I, by the way, we do have a Facebook group that's called Weekly Energy Update. And for those who would like to have more of a up close and personal access to our live videos, that we do them in that group only. And we will be talking more at some point about the move of Jupiter into Scorpio, because, Jupiter wants to enlighten, and it's that higher level of wisdom mm-hmm. and knowing. And it is, I'm not going to say it's moving through Hades environment and through hell, but it's moving through the underbelly and the deep, core stuff that we have, And
in fact, I want to say it's moving through the things that we've hidden, the mm-hmm. secret passageways. Mm-hmm. If we are in a underground in a subterranean environment, cave, oftentimes you have surprises, because down there you will find maybe an underground river, or you may find rock formations that are really surprising. And that's kind of like what our consciousness, this is a collective. See, we are looking at mm-hmm. collectively together mm-hmm. the subterranean aspects of ourselves. You cannot see that from the surface. And now Jupiter is saying, I'm really going to shine a spotlight on this subterranean world.
It is. It's here. It's not a transitory phase. I mean, in the broader expanse of time, it is, because we will collectively, we will be moving into new phases. But this cycle for the next year, this is not a short-term peak. Mm-mm. This is people really coming to terms with where they have allowed others to have power over them, where they have felt subjugated, and where they've had power over others. This is for every time one of these allegations comes out, it's an opportunity for every man also, or woman, to look at, where have I held power over another person and thought it was no big deal? we're looking at power because power runs the engine of everything. So one thing I wanted to mention is that today is Thursday, we have a full moon coinciding with Mercury retrograde, and that is on Sunday. And so tomorrow after the radio show, so at I think we're doing it at
11:30. 11:30 Pacific time. And
yeah, we're going to do a full moon Mercury retrograde look and full moon through the houses and talk in more detail. But we just want to mention it for today because that's coming up in 3 days, and it's kind of a doozy.
It's a big thing because we have Mercury sitting in Sagittarius. And if Mercury is communication and Sagittarius is about, to some extent, our moral codes and also telling the truth. And then we have the moon sitting in Gemini, which can be the opposite. It can be complementary, but it's the opposite sign of Sagittarius. So we have something really big going on.
Yes. So we're going to talk in more detail about what that is tomorrow. But for now, we're going to draw some cards for the week, and just understanding that this is not the whole story because we do have a big full moon coming up. So some cards that I drew today, let's start with the first one. This is for everybody, is the Princess of Discs in the Tarot. And this is a practical learning card. It's a card of searching for practical information that you can use in your world. And it's about allowing yourself to be the student and allowing yourself to get involved with the things that are passionate for you. This seems to be part of the energy this week. I'm also getting the Two of Wands, which is actually, it's called Dominion in this. See that? Very fiery.
It's can you hold those two cards up? Because in an interesting way, the princess could be the Gemini coming into the moon in Gemini, and the wands is the fire, which is the Mercury in Sagittarius. So those two cards are sitting there together.
Well, and if I think of Mercury in Sagittarius, Sagittarius likes to just push forward with impulsively with what they want to say. It's sort of that foot in mouth sign. And it's very fiery and very, I'm going to tell you what I think. And it doesn't have necessarily a lot of tact to it. And so when I look at the Dominion card, there's an antsiness to a lot of us right now. There are communication systems, situations where we want to push through the Neptunian, I don't know, is it this or is it that? We want to get some clarity and we want to kind of barrel through with this, we're feeling antsy. This is a card of feeling antsy and feeling like, wow, I've got to do it all. And, here I am,
I'm so glad you said that because Neptune is not one, and they're going to be squared to each other. That means that energy, and that's a very good word to describe that process of that water, Neptune and Pisces, water with Mercury and Sagittarius, that fire. So what happens when you put fire and water together? And I think that's a very good description, antsy. But Neptune will not have it because it'll just wipe out things. What does water do? If you get a sizable amount of water moving, it just will move right over things, including over the top of the fire. And what do you get? This sizzling, that feeling of sogginess. And we know what happens when you put water on the top of fire and you have the steam that rises. Now we could use that steam.
Well, and think about the energies that we have at play right now. So, part of us wants to get clarity, and we want to do that by getting fired up about something and
Hmm.
pushing forward to get,
Hmm.
tell me if this is
Yeah,
what's really going on.
that's
And
right.
meanwhile, you have this wet blankety dissolving energy, and I feel like there could easily be more confusion coming up for people this weekend as they try to communicate more clearly. So just be aware of that. And the third card that I got is the Queen of Swords, and this is
Mhm.
an air card. This is a card of clear thinking. This is a card of, ultimately, all the queen cards for me are mastery cards. They're having dominion, even though dominion is the name of the two of wands in this deck. But it's really about you holding your own counsel about your perspective and
Mhm.
not getting lost in that
Mhm.
watery mix, not getting too merged with another person, that
Mhm.
you're just only supporting their point of view, because you may have your own point of view and it requires a separation from the situation to have that clarity.
And you know what you said when we started our talk today about everybody going, "Oh, I can't believe." Now that's a very wide-eyed kind of Neptunian. Oh my God, what happened?
Yeah.
Uh, and you just said something very important with the Queen of Swords, holding your own spot. This is a time because
Mhm.
Jupiter and Scorpio are really asking us to assess what is power. And each one of us has to answer that question. It's not just about them over there and all the stuff in the newspaper and who did what. It's turning and looking and asking the question, how do I live in the center of my own sovereign self?
Yeah. Yeah. It's and let me add to that. How do I live in my own sovereign self when my efforts to clarify or communicate lead me to more confusion from the other person or from a situation? So how do I let that be whatever it is and not try to clean it up and clear it up for that other person? but
Right,
but how do
right.
I say, look, because look at this. She has a sword in one hand, and I don't know if folks can see. She has
Yeah.
got a severed head in the other. So she's said, you know what? And you almost get the feeling of this is that she's just made her own decision, and she's like, off with her head. She's got the head, and it's really that she is saying, ultimately, we each have to have a moment of clarity in our own consciousness where we make a decision for ourselves, whatever that decision is. And it has nothing to do with the situation being perfectly balanced and figured out. Isn't Mars still in Libra?
Yes, I believe it is.
Trying to get the perfect balanced action. Sometimes the action you need to take is just the one that is right for you.
Well, that's very, as you are holding the queen, I'm using oracle cards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, the cards that came up for us today is the part of the medicine. I first pulled intuition.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be willing. Ooh, I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to see. I got a little intuition and imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And both of these cards, this is from Sonia Choquette's Ask the Guides.
Mm-hmm.
And intuition means, again, referring to oneself, as difficult as it may be, because we're so uh, tuned into what does the other person have to say. Intuition, and then sitting quietly and imagining a new reality for oneself. And these both come out of what she calls the inner child. Now, the inner child play takes us all the way back to our solstice, when no, not solstice, our solar eclipse
Mm-hmm.
in August with Leo, we're still, I would say, we have to make reference to that in terms of how do I begin to find my own answers? Because Mercury and Sagittarius is about finding answers also and telling oneself the truth. So I think these two cards, that's what I have.
Yeah.
Intuition and imagination.
I really like that. I like that. And so, you know, we couldn't have this conversation regarding Neptune and the full moon coming up without acknowledging that there are probably some people right now who could be on opposite sides of any particular fence, or just personally feeling very disillusioned, feeling
Yes.
like, I just don't know what this world is coming to. I just don't know what to expect anymore. And kind of, this is a message that we have a lot, Ruth, which is we can't wait for the world to be what we want it to be before we decide what we're going to have of it. And I'm not saying that we can always have everything. You know, life can be unexpected. Life can be unfair. Life is an adventure. But if there's just so much, there's so much of an influence right now in the world of information that is so discouraging. And I want to just encourage the people who might be watching this to not get discouraged by what you are perceiving is out there, and keep focused on, like you're saying, your own imagination of what you would like to create. Because when someone takes your imagination away, you're done.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I'm glad you said it in the way out there and in here. Everything, again, I want to, and the third card that I received was devotion, and the sub is nature spirits. And I think now you can see it a little better. And everything always goes back and centers on nature herself. If with all this confusion going on, if we just step out for a minute, wherever we happen to be, if we can find a tree or any type of little thing in nature to help us focus, because it has to go back to self.
Yeah.
I mean, you were just saying that everybody's looking around and saying, what is the world coming to? Well, the first order of business is the world is us, is me. The world is you. The world is nothing without any of us. We are it. We are it.
Right. The world is many me's.
That's right. I like that. That very way. Absolutely. Many me's. And so part of it is our languaging. Part of our healing and our medicine is to recognize, just like you said, it's me. What am I envisioning? What am I being willing? Am I to be devoted to? Am I being devoted to what they say? Or am I being devoted to learning to listen to my own intuition and imagination? That's the street.
Yeah.
There or here.
Yeah, so this is about to ring, so I'm going to cancel it so it doesn't make a noise. And that's our show for today. You know, I think that's actually a lot. I think, you know, we've talked about just the tension in this week of moving into not only a Mercury retrograde, but also a full moon, and that opposing the Mercury. And I think that, you know, we'll talk more about this, especially tomorrow on our live presentation, where in each of our lives this is affecting us, where we're going to go around the circle and just really look at where we each really need to pay attention in the next 3 days. So this is going to be a really great live video, because I think we being prepared and aware of something that's happening is half the battle for me. You know,
and self communication. That's what I'm calling it. Self insight communication.
Yeah. So we will post the links both to the Weekly Energy Update Facebook group where you can see that live video. And because of the nature of the platform, we can't move that video around. So it just stays in the group. And we hope that you can join us for that. And of course, I have my radio show in the morning tomorrow before that at 10 a.m. Pacific. And we'll be talking more about December's energy and what we're looking at for this month. Ruth, anything else you want to mention before we go?
Well, I'll see everybody tomorrow, and then this is actually a continuation. So
yes. So tomorrow's show will be a continuation, and so until then, happy Thursday, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.